Mackenzie's help. Thank goodness we have her. All right, well, let's start with our special work session.
Yes. Are we ready to jump in to a bunch of numbers and spreadsheets and fun financial stuff?
I believe we are.
Okay, so hopefully you guys have a fresh cup of coffee. Because we are ready to dive into this deep pond here. So I'll start off with just kind of giving an overview and summary of the work that our public works team has been doing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Richard and Loretta to kind of get into some of the details. But we employed TJC Accounting to come and help us develop utility rates. Are super important because we want to make sure that we are collecting enough money to cover the cost of operating our utilities. Now, we're not in it for a profit, but we do have to plan ahead for maintaining our facilities, as well as when those facilities want to expand, planning for how that expansion would occur. And I think that in the intent side of things, it's that we want development to pay for development. I think from an intent side, we want we want to ensure that individuals that have already been included in the system and those rates are there, that they're just paying for the long-term maintenance of those things and the cost of actually providing that service. So that's, I think, I think traditionally Mason County has had a very supportive relationship with all of our utilities. The commissioners in the past have made the priority to fund specific pieces of these utilities through other sources of funds, like the second quarter percent of the real estate excise tax and the rural sales and use tax. Now, those funds are definitely intended to help cover utilities, but they're also specifically targeted for parks. And I know that this commission has looked at opportunities for expanding some of our parks and doing some things up in North Mason with potentially some turf soccer fields or turf playing fields, I would call them, because it could use more than just soccer. But those are the same funds that are competing for what we're actually utilizing to subsidize some of our utilities. And so thinking about long term, how do we protect our customers? How do we from crazy rate increases? Because when you only have 300-400 people on a utility, it's hard to do anything, especially as these utilities are aging. But how do we plan ahead to ensure that these utilities are self-sustaining? Richard or Loretta, would you guys like to add anything to that?
Go ahead, Loretta.
Get unmuted here. Yeah, thank you. That's a great overview. I think the other thing that I would like to add and acknowledge is Richard's look ahead. So one of the things that we have needed to improve on, in my opinion, is that look ahead. So we're going year to year, and are we making it through our annual budget cycle? But Richard has taken a nice look ahead for what's the forecast for the next 10 years in terms of major maintenance needs or some future capital, whether it's for system expansion in Belfair or for just preserving and protecting the infrastructure that we have in place and making sure that we're providing the best service to our customers as possible. So that work has happened as best we can. And commissioners, you may also recall that we've got some plan updates that are underway for some of our utilities here in the near future. And so our capital needs projection will be refined further in the next 2 or 3 years as well. So when we're doing our look ahead, it's based on what we know to the best of our knowledge today. And again, that will continue to be refined.
Yeah, and in evaluating that look ahead, there's you got to consider what the regulatory climate looks like and what it's gonna look like in the next 10 years, because it will not remain the same. We all know that it will always get ratcheted tighter, so. With that in mind, I guess if we're all in agreement, we can move forward.
I guess the only thing that I'd like to add to that, Richard, would be that the intent of this meeting with the commissioners is to really lay out what the rate options look like, to get some direction from the board, and then we would take that information and go out to these communities and present it and get their feedback.
I'm hoping that we will bring them options. One of the things we've done in the community at these community meetings is talked about doing it with a base rate and then so much per gallon. It'd be nice to present it in two different ways. What it would look like, a base rate, so many gallons, but also what it would look like without that base rate. I think they will choose the base rate with gallons when we start having a conversation of you pay for what you use compared to everybody else has a shared payment of what everybody uses. I think they'll pick it, but I would rather them pick it. As being a person that's been at those meetings, I assure you, I'd rather them pick it and have that be the recommendation to the commission than us choose it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner. A little bit later in our workshop, we will share with you a calculator. So you can take a look at what your typical water consumption use is and plug in, well, if I use 600 gallons, what would my rate be, my monthly rate? And if I'm using 6,000, what does that look like? And it's based on the tiers. So that'll give folks a real life example based on their existing use of the water. Kind of a handy little tool for them to play with. All right. Well, commissioners, if we could jump in, I think, do you want to start with just the high level overview of what we know today based on the rate analysis? We've got that information to share. We have spreadsheets with all kinds of details for each individual utility, and we can walk you through one of those as an example, or all of them, depending on your time that you want to spend today. And then certainly a spreadsheet that talks about the what we're referring to as an affordability analysis. So the US EPA and actually our state statute talks about what is an affordability test. And for wastewater, the test is 2% of the median household income, and water being 2.5% of the median household income. So we can talk about what that meant for each individual utility. And as we look into the future, are we meeting that test? And what is commissioners' comfort level around that? Is that the right affordability test, if you will? So that's kind of what we've got laid out to walk through. So Richard, do you want to start off with just kind of the high level overview of the results?
Yeah. So as you're well aware, rate analysis has been completed. And as Loretta stated, we had the overall objectives of making them self-sustaining, and we had debt ratios and all that to consider, and affordability and planning for future capital and large maintenance projects. And really what we've came away with is water rates are significantly less than needed, especially in Russellwood. We're looking at significant rate increases for both. And those are projected without any outside revenue sources. Moderate increases recommended for Belfair Sewer, and increases are also recommended for North Bay and Russellwood. We also did the debt service coverage test, besides just the affordability analysis, and basically utilities with debt were analyzed to as to whether a target coverage ratio of 1.5 is met. Pierce Cove met the test for all years. North Bay, in our analysis, that is, North Bay all years except until you get to 2031 and 2032. Russellwood and Belfair Sewer, a mix of yes, no, with wide swings indicating rebalancing may help. Let's see, as far as the affordability analysis, Pierce Cove water and Belfair Sewer existing and proposed future rates are within affordability targets. Russellwood water is presently well under the 2.5% target. However, proposed rates would be considered as elevated hardship, 3.27% without any transfers in. North Bay and Russellwood sewer rates are presently slightly above the 2% target, and proposed rates are under 2.5%. So basically, as on our agenda request form, the budget impact, Belfair and Russellwood funds currently receive a mix of REIT 2 and 09 you're aware of, and thank you for those. In addition to customer rate revenue, rate adjustments may help reduce or eliminate a steady reliance on these funds over time. So we're also planning community meetings that, well, we did attend in Russellwood, Lakeland Village, and Beards Cove. We still have proposed rates to present to them, and they're well aware that is yet to come.
So how do your community meetings go? Are they well attended or?
I thought they were well attended. And I thought people were very interested. I'll say that they're very interested and concerned, and I don't blame them one bit, because this is a bill that never goes away. So I don't know. I know Commissioner Netherland was at a couple of meetings.
I was at two of the three. I would have been at the third, but there was a miscommunication. They gave me the wrong day for the meeting, or I would have been there. And that was at the one I live at. So that was interesting. They thought I abandoned them. But with that being said, for the most part, there were some people that were wanting to be mad. But the way it was handled in that room between myself and Richard and Loretta, I think we were able to keep them from getting upset. And instead, we put it off to wait until you see what we come up with, and then we'll be able to discuss it. We'll give you options. That was the hope and idea, and they were very receptive of that. And so it had them just wondering what it is and looking at some of these, depending on what we decide to do. If we end up going with I'm going to ask a question now. Sorry about that. I'll leave that one. If we end up going with the affordability rate, are you talking about lowering the amount that we're doing in North Bay?
Bring that one up. I gotta say, before I answer that question, hats off to our consultant that did the deep dive on all this, because it was a mountain of work.
So before you, oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep, keep coming. Maybe one more. Perfect. I can read that now. Thank you.
Our ages, what can I say? So yeah, looking at this, it looks like you're suggesting, which tickles me to death if that's the case, but I also know that means we have to find money elsewhere. If we went to the target rate, then we would have to lower a few, but it would also create an equal playing field between Belfair and North Bay at the same time, which I think is exceptional. As long as it doesn't go up, if it can come down to that, but we're going to have to find monies to offset some of those things, I think. But if that's what your goal is, that's kind of exciting. People in Russellwood are going to be pissed. But again, the numbers are the numbers, right? So we have to find a way to get them there.
Right. Oh, yeah. There is just so much information. It's hard to keep up with it all. Especially once you get to see all the different spreadsheets and the tabs of all the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I don't see how North Bay doesn't just turn around and say, thank you very much. Belfair, remember, I live out there. I have to justify it, but I actually can. I don't see, if we were to do the 110 rate all the way across the board, I don't see how I can't justify it. It's easy if we're doing it with everybody and making it equal, and we're able to show that that's where we're basing that off of their affordability rate. That's huge. Well, Russellwood has to be happy too, because we bring theirs down, but how much money are we going to need to do this affordability rate? Because that's
No, Russellwood Water.
yeah, but the Russellwood sewer would make up for some of that Russellwood water. Actually, the Russellwood water would go down too if they've got a rate of $181 per unit of Russellwood for water.
No, commissioners, if we could just go through the spreadsheet and do a quickie explanation of what
Please.
this
Sorry.
means. Yeah, no problem. So if you take a look here at this column, the 2023 rates, this is what our current rate is today, okay?
Okay. Yep.
And then if you take a look at what if we were just purely looking at what does it take to balance this for future capital, covering our operating needs, all expenses. Here's where you're seeing that, okay, in North Bay, we're projecting that we need a 9% increase. And so if you apply that 9% increase to the 125, the new rate is $136 per month. So what percent of that what is that compared to the median household income? So in this case, if we were to bring the rate up to what we say we think we need it to be to cover all costs, it would be 2.46% of the median household income. And our target's 2. So if our goal is to stick with 2, we don't want to be bringing this rate up to $136 per month. Okay. And then, for example, now go to Belfair. We're saying we're thinking a 4% increase would be sufficient to cover our needs. If we apply that to our existing rate of 101, our new rate is $105. And that is only 1.9% of the median household income. So we meet the target of 2% here. We're good within our affordability index. So the reds that you see highlighted, if we were to apply the rate increase that we're saying is needed to balance, the reds are the ones where we're out of whack on meeting our affordability index. So we need to think about adjusting some other way to meet that target. So this is 2024. And then the same analysis was applied throughout the next 5 years. So in 25, this is demonstrating that we would be within, we've got a couple that are out, but anyway, the same analysis was performed for the out years. So this tells us where we need to do some rebalancing to make sure that we're hitting those targets. And I'm assuming those are important targets for commissioners to maintain. Are there questions about this lovely spreadsheet?
Loretta, could you go back to
24?
Well, just kind of a methodology question, I guess.
Sure.
The 2% target, is that just kind of like an industry standard, or is that something that you're recommending, or something that we've set in code?
So the 2%, it's a little of both. So US EPA, it sets the industry standard for both wastewater and water. But I believe in our Washington Administrative Code, it flat out states the 2%. And I'm sorry, I don't have that citation, but it is identified in WAC.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Here's the guidance. And then commissioners, if you're interested, there's publications and a recent study, if you really want to dive in deeper on this affordability business, can absolutely send you the links and references to the code on that. And then to build the water rate analysis, TDJ and crew put together this little table, which is lovely, that talks about converting how many cubic feet equal a gallon, how many gallons per day per person. So what are the assumptions around that? And then took a look at what our consumption rates were for our water utilities. So what has the actual reading been for Beards Cove systems? And given those readings, what does that look like in terms of developing a rate? With what we used in this scenario, commissioners, is 3 tiers. And Commissioner Netherland, you were wanting to present some options. So what you see in this rate calculator is assuming that you have a base charge, and that base charge is $45 per month. And then for the first tier, so you have up to 630 gallons.
Is that what the average, because you were on it a minute ago, what was the average number that average household did?
Let's see if I can find that right spreadsheet here.
I would just note that the averages for total consumption on some of these are going to be skewed, because just based on consumption numbers that we're seeing, it appears that some of our residents either have significant leaks or are really green grass.
And I guess what I meant by that question was the average for calculations that we're doing for the whole for the area. We did a lot of this when it came to doing our wireless and stuff, but what number are we falling on for the average household usage that's recognized the state of Washington, Western Washington? Curiosity.
Oh,
The reason why is, well, that's a great place to start for having options for how to raise revenue also.
but we have so we could use what the statewide data is, if you will, Commissioner, but we also have actual. What is the actual per utility? But
our actual includes watering that grass, filling the swimming pools.
Of course, yes.
So I'm talking about what they've, I'm just trying to get the number in my head. What is that number for the state? For the
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I do know that if you look at what indoor use is compared to outdoor, typically it's 70% of your total water use. So, let's say that you were using 2,000 gallons per, 2,000 gallons. 70% of that would be for your indoor use, 30% for your watering and outdoor use.
The thing I need is, for example, tier 1. You got a base charge. The base charge is going to be anything up to 631 gallons. What is our Western Washington average?
Okay, gotcha.
Because you may have just given us an ability to set that 2% rate, which I'm hoping will be our goal. That's what we do, and even if it brings them down, and then leave the money that is needed as a separate entity that is put into the tiers for extra usage they do. So if you got a number that I could just use for my own calculations, how many gallons did we figure per month? for Western Washington use.
I don't know that we assumed a Western Washington use for this analysis.
You only used our own?
Correct. Yeah, based on what our consumption or what our customers' consumption is.
Loretta, do we have an idea of what is a typical utility base? I mean, do
Yeah.
we say,
I can give you some from more of a wastewater perspective.
Yeah,
We estimate 80 gallons per day per person, about 2.5 people per household.
Right.
It's
okay, that's what I'm asking. Do you already have the math, or do I need to do it?
I want to say it was about 590. Is that correct, Richard?
Yeah, because I mean, from a wastewater perspective, that's would be, but not everything makes it down the toilet.
No, but that's okay. So we've got a buffer there. Is that number we were looking at a minute ago, was that wastewater or was that water?
Water.
Okay, so what is the number we use for water? That same number that you just did.
630?
No, but what number? What you said 80 gallons per day per person. What number do we use for consumption of water, not sewer per household?
You know, I don't have that right like I do wastewater stuff, but I can tell you, just home water use in the United States, average monthly usage is 1,128 cubic feet per our TDJ consultant. That's one of the numbers they use, but that is not reflective of what we see here. I would almost say I double, you know, the wastewater number.
So here's our little, can you see this table here, commissioners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I need though, Richard, is the actual, I need a number to plug in for mine. If we're using 630 feet as our base, what is the actual base out there? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, I think it's right up there. Now that I look at it, 156 gallons per day equals 1 ERU. But I can make a few calls and get us a good number.
The only reason why I say that is it gives us a way to present it to the public.
Mhm.
That if you are the average person, this
Mhm.
will be your rate, and it'll keep you within the 2%. But
Right.
if you are not the average person and
Yeah.
you're excessive, then your rate will be 3%, or whatever we end up with. It's a way for us to make up the money that we're less, but at the same time bring down the cost for those that are doing the average usage. It's up to them if they want to water their lawn more than the average person uses water. If they want to conserve in other ways, it just seems like an absolute great way to do it, because you would have the opportunity to offer people to lower their rate.
Yes. Yeah. And then Commissioner, on the flip side, sure that as we encourage people to be good water consumers, right, and conserve, that we have enough, because at some time, over time, the water consumption will be going down. And so we always want to make sure that we're maintaining enough on that base to be able to pay for our operations.
Well, and the base 2% should be, that's what we should base our average, our standard. I'd love to give, if I had a perfect world, that we find out what the average is, give them a 10% increase above the gallons of what the average is, and make that the base rate that covers the 2%.
Mhm.
And then we can start to collect, because I'm sitting here trying to think of other ways to collect revenue. For example, you got Russellwood out there that we have a limitation on the water that we have. We're at the end of it. Can we get some more rights? I don't know. Can we do anything? I don't know. But we could also perhaps bring in more money eventually for the sewer by rezoning or allowing for a larger growth factor on the properties that are around it. I did a quick check, and there's some large parcels that are owned by Mankey. There's also another one that's privately owned down below that's on the water. And if we were able to provide sewer for them, that means more usage. That gives us more money coming in. Especially if we got grants to extend it out to there.
And you hit on one of the real key considerations, Commissioner, about why Russellwood is challenging financially. We've got a limited customer base, right? We have very similar operating costs and needs, but just a small customer base with little ability to expand. So our assumptions about expansion are essentially zero ERUs at this point in our model.
Unless we do something as a commission to change that. That's what I was saying. I'm just looking for options to get money, because I know eventually we're going to have a critical mass when it comes to Russellwood. There's no way around it. Looking at your numbers you have now, we're way past critical mass now. So
Correct.
we have to either keep paying it out of our pockets, put it all on their shoulder, which we can't do. That's not even possible. Or find ways to bring in more connections.
Other connections or outside revenue sources.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, getting back to the average usage.
Mhm.
Just looking at our code, 630 cubic feet, right? 7.48 gallons per cubic feet in a day, 2.feet. There's a lot of numbers. It all equates to about 62 gallons per day per person. That's what it equates to in Washington State Chapter 246, 272. WAC specifies 60 gallons per day per person.
Okay, that's 1,860 gallons per month. What does that come down to for cubic feet if you did 2.5?
Let's see. We got, looks like there's 7,560 cubic feet a month based on 600 or gallons per month based on, that would be 62 gallons per day per person.
Or 250 cubic feet per month per person. Does that sound right?
So then we're safe, in my opinion. We are safe, and I think we're giving close to the 10% with the 630, or if we made it 650. We're not screwing anybody over. We're given the opportunity to come in with a little bit of leeway to do some extra stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Easily within 10%, Commissioner.
Yeah. That doesn't sound too bad to me, guys. That sounds like it may be doable. I was pretty scared coming to this meeting.
Me too.
So a quickie here on using this particular model. So let's say that I've got 630 cubic feet of water consumption. So you see, you just have a base charge of the $45 and then zero on the other tiers. So I bump up to 635. You can see your base charge is 45, and then you're adding another 10 cents for the tier 1. And let's say we're going up to 1261. We just barely went over our limit here for tier 1. So you've got your base, your tier 1 charge, and then a little bit of tier 3.
Is that enough to get us where we need to go? I didn't think so. Okay.
Richard's shaking his head.
I saw Richard's head. Can I ask you one more thing? If looking at that, I can do the math myself, but I can ask you
Sorry.
cubic foot. If we're going to charge so much per cubic foot, which is $2 per cubic foot, how many gallons in a cubic foot was it again?
7.48.
So if it's 7.48, that's actually comes out high. So maybe someone else do the math for me so I don't have to do it. So if it's 7.48, $2, how much are we actually charging them per gallon afterwards? They're not going to see it in the form of cubic feet. They're going to see it in the form of gallons.
They'll see it in cubic feet, right?
Yeah, no. in their heads,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
they're gonna
Yes.
want to know how much is that per gallon.
Yeah, gotcha.
So how much is that per gallon?
All right.
So afterwards, we're gonna charge them 27 cents a gallon.
Well, since it's a tiered rate, the first
Hmm.
$45 is spread over 630 cubic feet. So 630 times 7.48 is 4,712.4. So if just doing math, if we divided that by $45 base rate.
No, I'm simplifying it. I'm actually looking at $2 for one. Oh, that's per 100 cubic feet. So it's actually 2.7 cents per gallon.
Well, yeah, you can say tier 2, it just charges 3 cents for that one extra one.
Yeah, 2.7, so 3 cents per gallon. If that ain't as bad. When I saw 26 cents, I about lost it. 3 cents per gallon. Again, that's kind of doable.
All right. Anything else on this, commissioners? I guess let's, before we leave the affordability spreadsheet, walk through just kind of a quickie summary of the capital assumptions. Is this somewhat readable? I know I'll have to scroll across, but is it?
Oh, that looks good.
Is that better?
And I have it on my other screen, so
All right.
I can zoom in as far as I need to.
Okay, perfect. So here, commissioners, you can see by utility, what the activity is, what the description of the work is that's planned. And then over the next 10 years, what is the estimated cost to perform that work? And then, of course, the 10-year sum by utility. And I think a lot of this you've seen, at least certainly in Belfair, as we've done our look ahead there, but happy to share with you what this all means. If you want any further explanation about what the projects are that we're anticipating in the next 10 years.
And I think that we've been fairly, so we have to assume that for this purpose, we're putting out the actual total cost of capital improvements that need to be made. We've been fairly lucky in our quest for dollars outside of our rates to help us with some of these things. So as those dollars come in to assist us with some of these projects, if we're successful, then that would put less of a burden on the ratepayers.
Didn't we get some money from the legislature just recently?
We did. And in particular for Russellwood, Commissioner. Yes. Yeah, just under $500,000 administered through a commerce grant to make significant water system upgrades in Russellwood.
Right. And how are we doing on that?
We've got about a third of it underway, Richard,
Yeah.
would you say, approximately?
Yeah, well, I mean, it included the PRV, the pressure reducing valve installation, relocation and installation. We're 90% done with the rewiring and all the control wiring and new panels inside the reservoir and control room are in. I got a couple little pressurization pumps that I've planned to fix on that, and then we're into the study time and engineering report for the iron and manganese issues.
That's cool.
Yeah, so the physical work's been taken.
Yeah. Commissioner Trask, I think that, I forget how long ago it was, maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half. You took a look at that nice little snarl inside the pump house in Russellwood. It's much improved today.
I'd love to come and take a look at it. Yeah, it was rather alarming.
Yeah, so hats off and thanks to our legislators and providing those important funds to get that done.
Right. I think it would be also worth inviting them out for a trip to take a look at it. They need to see that their work in Olympia is paying off for their community too.
And I'm actually in the process of trying to set up those times with Deb Mungia.
Very cool.
Let's see, anything else, Richard, that you think would be good to share before we leave this particular spreadsheet? I guess the other, just a summary of our debt by utility. This, I'm sure you're all familiar with as well. So the Belfair, and then also what projected future debt might look like based on our capital improvement plan. And then we've got tabs on rate history, what's been the increase over the past 5 years. And as you're well aware, that's been based on the CPI commissioners, other than last year, which we had a significant CPI, and so we had a one-time cap on that and did not apply the, what was it, close to 9%, 8%, I believe. So that is all of the hard work that went into this lovely spreadsheet. Is there a particular, I guess if there are no other questions on this piece, we can pull up one of the utilities
Yeah, I'd say the one
and
problem,
take a look at that.
the one thing I'm looking at in my head is I can see how we can adjust the water rates, but I'm not sure how we can do the sewer rates because we don't measure.
Yeah, we're using a proxy, and that's the ERU, and that's based on typical rates, which is a nationwide standard, an engineering standard. But it is not measured, and that's correct.
Russellwood water or Russellwood wastewater?
Pick one. We'll start.
Let's start with the wastewater, Richard.
Okay.
We've been talking a lot about water.
Okay. Gotta find it here. I got so many things open. Say Russellwood water or wastewater?
Wastewater.
Okay. I don't know how well you can see it. Are you able to see that? Right.
You're gonna have to bump it up a little bit for me, please.
That's what I mean.
And which set of spreadsheets is that one. That's the Russellwood Sewer.
2023, 2032. This is the all cost Russellwood sewer rate now. I think that's the one I have up there. Is it pumped up enough? For some reason? Right. Well, I hope you can see that.
Which tab are you on?
I'm
Oh,
on,
you're muted.
I can see part of it. It's so big.
okay, too big, there, that's better, that's. Are we getting to the just right size?
I can see that.
Okay,
And then Commissioner Trask, you asked which tab? It's the first tab, the draft. 23 to 32 model.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm on it.
Okay.
so this is where all that information comes together. All the debt, CIP, everything. So we'll start up here. You can see your input parameters. We have our current ERUs and going across rows 5 through 10, you can see not much change for Russellwood as far as growth predicted, because there just isn't really that much left. Finance parameters, current associated with our debt.
Yeah, hold on, leave it there for a minute.
Yep.
So what is our total debt on this system?
So commissioners, you can tab over. There is a debt tab on the spreadsheet.
Fourth tab.
I'm going off of yours, so.
Okay. There you go.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. But what does that represent?
Total outstanding debt. Scroll down a little bit more. There you go.
Okay, so that's how much we're paying per year.
Correct.
And then the total amount outstanding.
Okay, purple's total amount outstanding.
The very bottom would be total amount, so 1.1 plus 526.
1.6 approximately.
Plus the 526.
Correct. So
Or is combined 1.6 is what she's just said.
Yeah, a little over that. So 1.146 plus 526.
One thing I'd like to see considered somewhere in this is if we were to pay it off as a one-time expenditure through the county, or go to the legislature and get money to pay it off, what it would look like without that debt for the total amount to charge the customers.
as you can see, it takes, $62,000 a year off of the amount that we have to recapture. So
Mm-hmm. And the total amount we get on average for our rates now is?
So if you were to take that, just an average $62,000 divided by the 156 ERUs on an annual basis, close to $400 per person.
I know, but no, what I meant is just how much are we bringing in per year now? From the rate payer, what do they pay in?
To go back to your first spreadsheet draft, there you go. Scroll down to sources. There you go.
So we're currently only bringing in
207,000.
Yeah,
Correct. And we currently are subsidizing the debt, so $62,000 is coming in from other sources to help pay for that debt.
mhm. Now, we've strung it out in that spreadsheet, not because we have it already established, but because that's what's expected for us to do right now, correct? Okay. Because I know sometimes we put things in we put it out for so many years, and same thing with 09 funds.
Right.
In this model, our assumption is that you're going to continue to contribute $62,000 a year from other sources. When I say other sources, I mean not rates that you're charging the customers.
Is that a mix of REIT and 09, or is it exclusively one or the other?
It's presently been REIT 2, and that's, in my opinion, problematic. So you have limitations, right, on how you can spend those funds. And you, it can't be for operation costs. And that's really what we need to cover.
What about 09? We currently pay out of 09 to the city of Shelton. The number's been going down, but we're close to probably 100,000 a year. Are they allowed to use that however they need? Is that debt repayment, or are we allowed to use it ourselves for operations?
It has similar limitations to the REIT 2, Commissioner.
Okay, so are we allowed to use it for debt repayment?
I do not believe so.
The 0.09 funds?
Yeah.
I believe that we are allowed.
We could.
It's for capital expenditures.
So
But
debt
can
repayment,
also, there's a little more flexibility with the 0.09 funds that allows us to cover operational costs on capital. The one that's the super restrictive one is the second quarter percent of the real estate excise tax, and that is 100% capital.
so it still can be considered capital if we're using it to pay off debts. So that can come out of the REIT, but we also could use it for the 09 to use, say that 62,000 is operational and debt. So we could split it. So we just have to remember that's how we can do it, and maybe consider looking at 09 this year for some of that to offset, to give you some flexibility. But either way, we have that much debt that you just showed us every single year.
Yes. Yeah, and that is, Russellwood, we just retired some of that debt last year, I believe. So we're improving position a bit, certainly. I want to say we had an additional $60-some thousand in years prior for
Those
debt.
were the DOE loans, I believe.
They were, yes, I believe so, Mark.
And are those wrapped up in any other like general obligation bonds or anything? Like, is that
No,
just?
I believe they're standalone, Commissioner.
That would be a question for Lisa,
Yeah.
our treasurer, but yes.
So I was looking at the existing debt component of the briefing document, and the only one that it looks like it calls out specifically is Beards Cove with a USDA loan, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious just to know if this was lumped in and that was just the payment that we prorate out of there, or if there was something else that I was missing. So we can have a conversation with Lisa about that, though. That's fine.
On this screen, can you scroll up just a touch so I can see the roll-up numbers for the purple? Right there. Okay, thank you.
Oh, believe me, there's a lot on these things.
Yeah.
Well, scroll wherever you want.
We're taking it in the best we can, Richard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, quick, going backwards, it's a it's the 2020B general obligation refunding bond. Is the Russellwood.
So we wrapped it up and brought it down at lower interest rates. I was wondering why we wouldn't have done that. But
Yeah,
we had a couple of them that we were limited on not being able to do it in time or
yes,
too early to be able to pay it off.
yeah. And that's through December 2048. Okay, sorry, we interrupted your flow, Richard.
I don't even know where my flow's at. I lost my flow.
I think I know, we started, we were up on I think the assumption, the financial assumptions. We were still way back at the top of your spreadsheet.
We're
Well,
there.
the whole conversation is regarding flow, so pick one.
That's true.
Yeah, be like water. Okay. All right, I guess I did lose my flow. So there you go. There's our input parameters, our financial parameters we're looking at, salaries and wages. I got COLAs figured in 5%. I don't know. But that's COLAs and step increases combined. And now that I think about it, that's probably appropriate. We do have pretty large step increases when people get their licenses and stuff like that. So that's probably in line. And just so you know, this SDC is what we call a CFC. It's a for just a little change. I don't know why that's not CFC, but anyway. We got our collectability, and this is the 94% collectability. That is based on actual. We definitely got as much actual in here as we could to make it as real as possible. Except for this is okay. That's the rate that we're saying it needs to be, I guess. You guys got me out of my flow. I'm lost here a little bit.
So I think in summary, you can see the total sources of funds coming in is 270,000. When we look at the amount that we plan on using, so total uses, you're at $300,083. So we're spending about $30,000 more than what we're bringing in currently, and that's with a $62,000 influx of external funds to help support the utility.
And so you get down here at the bottom, I don't know if that's showing up on yours or not, but this is back to the debt service target ratios. That's another thing, whether they've been met, yes or no. You've got the number of budgeted FTEs. Yeah, I guess in summary, we're not in the greatest shape, and we definitely need to do something.
So when you go to the assumptions management tab, this was, so you don't foresee that we're going to need any more FTEs?
I don't see us. We have 8 FTEs budgeted. We don't fill them currently. I think it was staying with that number. We have room to grow into that number. So I don't, right offhand, no, I don't think we need more FTEs.
Okay, great.
I think that'll go down with the we need that many FTEs because we have so much stuff to respond to and repair and that. But we've been actually making great progress on fixing a lot of these things instead of band-aiding them. So we'll have less requirement to get out there and do that kind of work. We don't want to be a MASH unit forever. So we're trying to take care of it best we can with what we got right now.
No MASH unit, huh?
That's kind of what it feels like sometimes.
So no radar? Might be nice to have a radar.
Believe me, I feel like Colonel Blake sometimes when they just need a sign. Like what? So anyway. Yeah, there's a lot on this one as well. GC, it's been a while since we did this. We're still counting that we have Justin here. But we do have that FTE position.
And we're trying to fill it, so
We are
legit.
definitely trying to fill it. This is kind of a good exercise. I guess I am.
Yeah, all this is, it's a lot of information to take in. I'm gonna be completely honest, a lot of it I'm not gonna understand, so I'm gonna have to rely on you guys to help explain it to me.
No, I mean, this is where it all comes into this model.
So Richard, let's walk the commissioners through the rate then, or the suggested rate for Russell Wood Sewer.
Gotta find it. Okay, 118. That is their suggested rate. Currently,
That's the amount that we currently charge is $118. The suggested rate for 2024 would go up to 129.
yep,
But if we brought it back to the affordability rate, it drops down to 110.
So Russell Wood Sewer affordability.
I know.
Just going off of memory, so I could be wrong.
Yes, yep, yeah. And so if we went with our 2% target,
Yes, that rate would be 110.54.
correct.
Okay, so one of the things we need to do to make educated decisions is look at how much money we're going to need per year if we were at that rate to come up with. Currently, we're running at a 62,000. That's to cover debt. Those numbers somehow must change if we were to stay or bring it down to 110, which is the rate that we should be at.
Yeah, so let me,
So it's $18.46
So
times, that would be on a monthly basis, 12 times 156 people. So $34,557. Just running quick numbers.
no, that's good enough. That gives me an idea to keep it in my head. So
So say 35,000.
yeah. Now, one of the problems I'm running into, guys, is I actually can see the formula on how we can balance and take care of the water. There'll be some people will pay more, some people will pay a little less. It's a good one. I don't see how to do that with the sewer. I don't have at least the formula in my head and how to do it. I know we're still going to have debts that are coming up. Guys, I need to ask a special favor of you to come up with a number for me. Now, to the other two commissioners, I'm not doing this as asking this as a way to punish or anything. Everything we've done is past, it's done, it's history. But I need these numbers for being able to figure out any future development that we're going to do, and whatever kind of debt we're going to take on. So please excuse me on that. I'm not trying to break anybody over the coals. But to staff, we just recently took on some debts up in the North Mason area. I'd like to find out total what the outlay is per person per current ERU that we've had to increase for how much is needed to pay that off. I'd like to see it also broke down to per million. The reason why is if we do future development across the road, even if we get grants and we have matches, I need to have those numbers to try and figure out what that looks like per person in order to keep a balance between the 2% or that one's 2.5, right? No, that one's 2%. The other one's 2.5.
Yeah, to meet the affordability.
Yes. So I'll need those numbers eventually. So I know what we have now, because when we're looking at it, I've got to see, we have to see how much of that is going to be that debt that we're doing. Hopefully with that, even though we got it at low interest, the other commissioners will help us and we'll go and get the legislature to try and pay off some of the debt or forgive that debt. And then we can figure out how much that'll take off of our total we have to come up with to change it for affordability.
So you jumped to Belfair, Commissioner Netherland?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm talking strictly the construction we just did, or we're doing the process of doing. Total cost of construction, but what I'm looking at is what impact is that to get us to affordability per person, per ERU, not per person, per ERU. And what is the total, if you could round it up to per million, so that we can look at if we get $1 million taken off, what that will look like, or if we decide to go across the road and we expend 1 million and get the state to give us 2 or 3. We'll be able to understand exactly what the cost is on the ERU as we're trying to balance these rates.
Gotcha. Hey, Richard, would you mind either showing commissioners or maybe if you could let me share screen and I'll fiddle with the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh gosh, where's my stop sharing?
Up on top.
All righty. Okay, commissioners. So with the spreadsheets, you can use this to play with your own scenarios. So for example, we're back at the Russellwood rate model, and here we've got the 118, the recommended rate plugged in. But let's say, like Commissioner Netherland was suggesting, we want to start with the affordable, stay within the affordability index. So if we plug in $110, now watch the fund balance line here. You can see that without some other adjustments, we're going into a negative fund balance along the line here. And so you can use this spreadsheet to play with different scenarios. So what does that mean then? Do we need
that's compounded, right? I'm looking at that number. That's compounded. So if you got 5, you're taking on an additional 25,000 in debt. Then you're taking on you're taking on additional 25. Then the next year you're taking on additional 25,000.
Yep. And so this is assuming we're not transferring, we're keeping the same transfer in. So what does that mean? Well, if we're going to stick with this rate, we're going to need to throw some additional outside revenue sources in to make sure we have a fund balance.
25,000 more per year.
So feel free to play, play with the spreadsheets.
Awesome.
And the other thing we can do to help balance, so how critical is it? So you see the construction or the capital outlays that we're estimating over the years. So there can be some balancing, right? That can occur there. Does this $135,000 absolutely have to happen in year 26? If we're able to spread that over a couple years, start construction year end, wrap it up the following year, mid-year, does that help balance?
Or potentially get an alternative funding source
Absolutely.
for those CIPs, right? So those would
Yes.
all impact it. So it's a pretty complex rate model, which it
Yes,
has to be. But what is done here is that they've forecasted out what they believe to be an accurate picture of what our costs will be. In 2025, we're going to research opportunities to find grants to help us with the $306,000 CIP that's necessary.
Now, would we all agree that for when we're going for these grants, that having population is going to increase our chances of getting the grants? Now, if everybody agrees to that, would they also agree, though, that it doesn't matter on legislative as much if our legislators focused on, for example, debt forgiveness? I've found over the years that they sometimes can do that easier than they can get monies. You two have a lot more experience with that than I do. What do you think of that?
Well, I can tell you that the Public Works Board is going to not be supportive of paying off debt. If there's improvements and things like that, then absolutely. But I think the legislators will probably get some pushback as well, just because debt has a different definition. So if you're wanting to improve a system, something like that, you're going to get a lot more support.
What about forgiveness, Commissioner? Debt forgiveness. I've seen them over the years. I've seen Tim be able to do that easier than it was to get money sometimes. In your experience, what have you found?
I think that they're changing their mind. I don't
Okay.
know, if Commissioner Schutte, let me know if you feel something different, but I think that they hesitate more to pay off or even to forgive debt.
Yeah, I think a good first step is having our delegation come out, like Mark is working on, to take a look at these utility systems and get them to really understand the challenge that we're up against. I think the perspective that we need to use is, it's maybe a horse of a different color, but I mean, it's ratepayer stabilization. To be able to stabilize rates in these utilities is critical. And I think while our legislators have given some effort to supporting these utilities in the past, this past session, none of our utility requests were advanced in the capital budget by our delegation. And so the reality is the less outside money we get from the legislature to support these systems, the more burden is put either on the general fund or REIT or 09 or directly on the ratepayers, their constituents too. And so I think, we have to be able to kind of craft a narrative around these utilities, because we're not the only ones who own utilities that are struggling in the state, but we have to be able to leverage the fact that we have two legislators in our delegation who have been, who are going on a decade plus in their seat or in the legislature itself. We have Representative Couture, obviously, who's going into his second session and has some opportunities there to go to bat for us as well. And I think being able to kind of make that the emphasis for us. You know, when we can get into all the details and play with the models all we want, but like just from a overarching policy perspective, we have to be able to identify that we need to go and make these a priority when we're going to the legislature, when we're having conversations with Congressman Kilmer and his team, when they're doing their ask for community projects, that we're looking at every available funding source to make these capital improvements in particular. And then when we have an opportunity to talk about stabilizing rates for the systems with our legislators, we don't miss those opportunities. So I think the strategy there is kind of all of the above, Commissioner Evelyn, and I think those opportunities will present themselves as soon as we get some of that delegation tour on the books that Mark is working on, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, now that we actually have an affordability rate baked into our information, it does seem like it can be a very good tool. And as you said, ratepayer stabilization is an important word. I'm thinking back to, again, when Tim was able to get money and it was brought in, it actually usually either had the idea that it was forgiveness for one part, but everything else was literally tagged with the line rate reduction. Everything was done for the purpose of rate reduction. Remember, we get 1.5 million for rate reduction. The monies he got. So maybe that is where the strongest tool is.
Yeah, terminology.
Well, especially in their world, you guys lived in it. They hear things a certain way. They know what it means to them, where it means something different to you and me or others that are not there.
What's the difference between a bypass and a freight corridor?
Yeah. Well, freight corridor meant we got to go for federal, but at least that's what I remember.
Right. So, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
about how you build the narrative around.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the one thing that I want to leave staff with today is no stone unturned when it comes to finding funding sources. And I think that it sounds like that we're going to be having a conversation about a grant writer in our 2024 budget discussions, and so like at that point, really no excuses for not pursuing money at the state and federal level if we're able to bring a resource in like that. Because I mean, you look at these projections, you look at the you look at some of the rates being off by 300+%, like unreasonable to put that solely on the ratepayers of those systems. I mean, it's no fault of their own that these systems have gotten to that point. But we have to take every opportunity in front of us to go secure the funding and have our legislators engage with us on it.
And we are in the best position we've ever been in the history of Mason County to be able to withstand some of this while we get those ducks in a row. If we decide to do that, now is the time. We've never seen the position we're in ever.
So I just wanted to emphasize the information that you guys are talking about right now and how we built these models. So hopefully you can see the screen that I'm sharing, and it's large enough that you can see the numbers. You can see the screen, the cell that I have highlighted is CIP in 2025 of $300,000. And you'll notice over here that this is part of our sources. We've stated that it would be general fund subsidized or finding state grants, correct? Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
If I take this source out, meaning I don't get it from a state source, look at my fund balance in 2026.
No, I get it. We have to.
So that is I think that's and I 100% agree with you all in the approach to talking with our legislature. I think that we've got a great tool here where we can show them the median family incomes within these areas and where we currently are charging. And so even with Russellwood Sewer, where we're talking about implementing a rate in 2024 of $129, we're going over that goal of 2% for sewer. And so that's making an assumption that we get these subsidies. Could you imagine what would happen if we didn't? So that's the importance to the legislature, to show them this is how funding can help us sustain an affordable service for these individuals within this community. And I do think that I think that the legislature, at least in my limited experience with them, are more likely to fund a project than to satisfy debt. Funding projects is a little bit sexier. Hey, I got you some money. This is how I was able to benefit this community. You know, I'm definitely looking out for the constituents within my area. So I think that we can utilize this information to paint a pretty good picture associated with what we need.
Well, timing wise too, I think as Commissioner Schutte said, you know, using the extreme of, I think it was 311 presented in the fashion of the hardship that these people would have. I think that they're gonna, if we just ask them which one you want to pick up and take, they'll take them. They'll take some for us. They're warriors. So on this, go ahead. Sorry.
Interesting that so Senator Rolfos, she is now a commissioner over in Kitsap, and it's fun having her on our LSC board now, because she says I see things completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that we have to remember is they don't see things the way that we see things.
Yeah.
But if we make sure that they understand them and they're able to, a lot of people are visual. So if we take them out there, show them what needs to be done and what we have done with their money, I think that will be huge.
She'll be a great asset. I've known her for many, many years. Now she can, if we get together on projects, she can help us more than I can remember in a long time. My personal opinion is I don't think we're near ready to take any of this out to the public yet. I think we should have a lot more conversations. I do think on the water rate, we should look at a presentation eventually that sounds something like this. You know, the options are, this is the real need. This is where the numbers are that we're really supposed to be at. This is what you're really supposed to pay. This is a flat rate, and this would look like. Next would be the actual minus maybe reserves in future, which would look okay if it, you know, is put forward as one number again. But you have to let them know that if that was enacted by the commission, anything happens, anything bad, they're looking at a huge jump and a huge increase on that next year, carrying that burden to fix it or to expand whatever's necessary. Or is the best way to have a base rate like we're doing now that gets us next to the amount that we need, that's fair for everybody, and then have a tiered amount. And this will the tiered, this just on the water only. You might want to consider 2.25 and 3.25. The reason why is it brings it up to 3 cents at 2.25 per gallon. And if they go over that large amount, the people in the audience will look at it and say those are just the extremists. It would go to 4.3 cents. So you're still saying 3 and 4. It's just you're able to get that extra. And maybe the base rate needs to be just a little bit higher. That helps us to fill in all the gaps and get us closer to where we actually have to be. Because we don't want to also put together a program that that's gonna fail. So we got to come close with both of them. But again, I only see that for water right now. I don't know how. I need to do some more research. So I hope we're not putting anything out right now. We're just talking, and maybe we'll bring us back in a week or two to have further conversations.
We can definitely come back and schedule another meeting with the commissioners to further jump into this. I realize it's a lot of information to try and absorb within one setting. I do think that the information that the team has put together definitely shows you where we need the most help. And Russell Wood is that area, right? So what we're currently charging is not going to be able to sustain into the future. Commissioner Netherland, I think that one of the consequences associated with bumping those rates up on the higher tiers is that then individuals conserve. And so if we've expected that they're going to continue to move forward utilizing the same amount of water every month, then our revenue projections would be quite a bit low if all of a sudden now we saw them conserving that water and getting down to those lower tiers. So I think that there's a lot of science that goes into some of this stuff, and would love to I just want to make sure that we all understand the pushes and pulls associated with how we structure these rates, and currently, you know, where our rates exist and what it looks like moving forward.
And I believe me, I do understand that. It's so funny that I'm on the opposite side of where I was 13 years ago, because 13 years ago I had to do this for the Allen water. And so I've already been through all this before. And when I look at it, I was vehemently against pricing in order to force conservation. But in this situation, even though it will have that effect, that's not what I think we're doing. I think we're putting up a fair tier system, not to force conservation, but to spread the cost and the weight of the usage of it, because we don't have, unlike Allen at the time, had way more water rights than they had anybody to hook up. So forcing conservation meant nothing except for just being mean to people. So although I'm completely on the opposite side of it this time, I just think that that is a safer rate in order for us to put together a program that will actually fund the best stuff that we can. But again, I don't know what I cannot see the path to get us there with the sewer yet. I see these numbers actually working close enough to where we only eat so much while we figure it out. I just don't see it with the sewer. But
So I want to kind of take you back to that rates and affordability index for all of the utilities on the briefing sheet. And you know, we're currently charging $44 a month for water in Russellwood. And look at where that's at. If we bumped it up to $91 a month, so you know, over doubling it, they're still at only 1.65 of the median household incomes. So they haven't even reached that standard that we're looking at for the 2.5%. So I think that's the part that is probably most telling to me, is when we look at Russellwood and we see the impact of maintaining rates at such a low level has kind of put us in a situation now where we have some difficult decisions moving forward.
if we separate the waste and the water as we do our presentation to the community, the impact won't be the same, because the rate for sewer is much higher. So if we're lowering one, raising another, it's easier to swallow, I think, at the time. I could be wrong, but maybe we do want to consider separating out, do water one point and then sewer at another point. But because with them, remember, they have both. Unlike Belfair, we don't own a water system. We own in Beards Cove, but they're not actually even part of considered Belfair UGA. They're just right next to it and stuff. So it's different animal that looks exactly the same. I very much appreciate all these numbers. This is something that I'm going to give you a pat on the back, because I have been waiting for this conversation for 10 years. I've been waiting for numbers like this, so we actually had an idea what we were doing for 10 years. So now I have an educated base to start with, which I didn't have. I had a lot of guesses, and I looked at numbers by going through our budget, and I'm pretty good at it, but I still, you can't feel completely safe because you don't know all the numbers that are making the numbers you're only looking at. So I appreciate all this work that you've done. And I do hope we get somewhere on it that will balance for our community as well, though.
Yeah, hats off to Richard, our finance team, and the TDJ team, because it's been a lot of detail, a lot of deep dive, and certainly hats off to Mark for our reasonability tests. And did you look at this? What about that? Help me understand. And I'm sure there will be more questions along the line as we go forward, because certainly it's important, commissioners, for you to feel comfortable with the data and the analysis, and make sure that, as Commissioner Schutte said, we're on track with a good narrative, right? And able to communicate this to our customers, yourselves, and of course our legislators and the folks that we're asking grant funds for. So all of this to help sharp tune and move forward. So that said, as things pop into your mind about further questions or I need to see this analysis or come talk to me or help me understand this more, please do not hesitate to reach out and we will follow up.
Your plug and play is going to be nice and fun to work with. When I created that thing for the old Belfair sewer, somebody did all the work to create a plug and play for me. That's the reason why I was able to do it. So when I saw how you have this set up, I couldn't help but giggle a little bit because I'm there. I'm ready to go play on that, see what it does.
So just to point out Russellwood right now again, because I think that's the one that obviously is the scariest for us, and requires the biggest modification, right? So what we're currently charging of $44 is 0.8% of the median household income. 0.8.
Well, we have to increase it. There's at the same time though, hopefully in the long term, you'll consider the other commissioners will consider looking on the map and look at those properties that are around it, wondering if we can do anything zone wise to allow for development to occur out there, because we already have it already exists, already has the infrastructure. What avenues we can take, I don't know. I'm trying to go back on all my history in the planning commission to create that one independent zone. It is possible because it's a standalone community. It already has water, sewer available.
So Richard, as far as capacity, and I apologize, I didn't ask this question ahead of time, so I'm going to put you on the spot. But Russellwood Water and Sewer, the current systems that we have in place, what is the capacity? How much excess capacity do we have?
I'm getting that.
100 more on sewer, and on the water, I think we're close, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the water system's really gonna have the limiting factor because it's only approved for so many connections. I think it's 161 connections.
Yeah.
Like 156. So not a lot of room for water growth. I'm trying to get the wastewater one up right now.
What was it, 258 compared to 156? We have 156 current, 258. And again, I'm going off of memory, so I apologize if I'm wrong, but I think that's pretty close.
Let's see.
So I guess my point for that, Commissioner Netherland, is the cost benefit, right? So if we're going to add additional development or allow additional development within the area, what is the cost of taking that infrastructure to go out there and provide those services? And how many ERUs would we capture?
For sewer, yes and no, because for sewer, they would have to put their own infrastructure in. It's just allowing the property to be used for that, and then you're only connecting. I only looked at properties that are right next to where we currently serve.
Okay.
So just kind of like a Lakeland Village, right next door to it. You can do other developments, except for it's outside the UGA, so they can't. But as for water, I know that's a factor, but now they may be able to get their own water system, or maybe we look at more capability. I don't know, because the cost of that would be crazy. But if there's a developer and there's large pieces, and I think Mankey, just like Green Diamond, do allow for their lands to be sold and developed. If they have the infrastructure, the value of that property would go way up.
So we've spent a lot of time on Russellwood. I also would love to touch on Beards Cove. Are the commissioners okay with that?
Yep.
So Richard, can you walk us through some Beards Cove models for water? I said that before I opened anything on my own, so.
Okay, I'm gonna Beards Cove water model.
The reason I'm asking Richard to go on this one is because
You can see we're estimating one new ERU every 3 years. And of course, that's probably very conservative, but I really don't know how many vacant lots are still available up there. But they're very difficult ones if there's any.
There's not a lot,
Right.
very, very, very few.
Yeah, I guess, and they're difficult ones, but people are doing it. So. Yeah, you can see 2023, our recharge the same, 44. Going up to 45 and 24. Same sources. We do have, we're actually this transfer in from general fund, 100,000 is not going to occur this year. This is next year, and you'll see that in the budget presentation soon. Investment revenue, so there you can see our total sources. And that it seems to be in a much better shape, right? You got the coverage test, target net, yes, across the board. We do budget quite a few more FTEs up here. Does require a bit more work compared to Russellwood as far as water systems go. We do have a bit, it's an older system, has that AC pipe issue. And that's where you can see CIP running across the bottom there. And that's mostly addressing AC pipe valves and piping spread out over years, because it's going to take a long time.
And this is an area that we have identified as a potential project that would nice to get other funding sources for.
Amen.
We have in the past for that one for getting the meters.
So we got, let's see, here's our CIP look across the board. See, most of that is just replacing those valves, the head of the pipe. So you can actually replace the pipe. And
That was one of the things that came up as the quality of the piping and everything at the community meeting. They were a little surprised to hear what it was, and as they were demanding more, we had to remind them that that demand is great, but we'll go ahead and do it, but then you have to pay for it. And then there was a lot more, well, maybe we should look at what it takes and what needs to be done.
right. Is there any specific tab that interests any of you?
Hey, Richard,
Yes.
maybe go to the consumption data tab for 2024. I don't know that we've.
Yeah, so you can see we got some specific addresses pulled up here. And basically show their consumption data. We got one here that's way out of whack. Most likely a leak.
But I think the interesting thing here, so this is how we've baked in what the revenue needs are based on the average. So how many accounts total fit within that base consumption rate? How many are generally within the tier 1 and how many in the tier 2? And then applying our collectability rate. What does that look like? So I think this is a really handy set of information as well.
Right, that, yeah, understand some of the other numbers in the model for sure. Because a great percentage of customers, if they'll be unaffected by those tier rates in both systems, really.
And those ones that are the outliers, we definitely need to go visit them and talk to them about their water consumption because like you said, there most likely is a leak.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey.
that's something, couple ways that can be handled. Of course, the day to day, you know, we can go out there and knock on their door and let them know. It's really about the information getting from the computer to the operator to the person. Start any of this and change over to it. We want to get every one of these customers, their usage data. So they understand where they're at. And we'll have a fresh sheet of who the hot customers are to let them know that you probably got a leak or a rainforest in your backyard.
So when you do that, do you send out like comparables to their neighbors just so that they can see that geez Louise, yeah, I've got a huge problem here.
Well, I can tell you what we do. I live in a community that it's pretty much the same size as Russellwood. And we went to a metered service and we're still billing on flat rate now to each other. But we know what our usage is. And we know that's that, and we've been doing that. What is the average? What is your neighbors, you know, and what's alarming and who should be maybe, you know, we get that information out quarterly in my current neighborhood, just so, yeah, people understand what they're doing and compared to anybody else in the neighborhood and what is the national average for usage too, just to see if you're a water waster or not.
Right.
Well,
So
and this you have the screen that Richard has up right now. You can see that this account 308126 would get a bill for $890.66. So that might open their eyes a little bit in terms of water consumption.
And really, this is something, once you do this, I believe this is baked into this, but I forgot to ask. You can pretty much rely on about a 20% drop in consumption. After people start realizing what they're using, they will change their habit, especially if they got an $891 bill. That's going to get their attention. So we can expect consumption will go down. But along with that, only for Russellwood, that is, there is a small benefit, right? Consumption went down, so you probably gain a little capacity back in your wastewater plant.
Right.
Which capacity out of wastewater plant is a very expensive thing. So if you get a little bit of that back out of this, it's probably a good deal.
right. So we don't know how much is going down the drain. We just know that they're using a lot.
We can pretty much quantify it on we know how much exactly came in and went out of that treatment plant, and we know how much got sucked out of the ground.
Yeah, but that's as a whole, not as an individual. You can't tell.
Right.
Right.
So, guys, one of the things I would like to ask you to look at, especially if we're going to start doing presentations or anything, please call Lynch Cove, get the complete breakdown on the Lynch Cove system. They have their water system. Find out what their water system is charging total, but also find out what the PUDs are charging around. The PUD is charging around them for any places that they have.
Oh yeah.
So that we have that to show them when the time comes.
Yep.
I know that I'm on PUD 1 water, PUD 1 water system, and I pay I think it's about $89 a month. And I don't use very much water. It's just me.
And that's the one thing that I know, because when they bought those systems, there was an increase all the way around. So us being able to show them that, we're welcome to go contact PUD 1 or Lynch Cove if they want. I think they're going to pick us.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Compare and contrast.
Mhm.
See, we have that with the wastewater too, because in Belfair, when this first started, it was so far out of whack. They were literally, we were paying twice as much and getting, literally half of what the ERUs were in Kitsap. Now they've all kind of caught up, and so it makes sense of where we're at. But in the beginning, it was just horrible. We couldn't do a compare and contrast. Now we can.
Well, thank you, commissioners, very much for your time this morning and good direction, questions. As Mark said, Richard said, it's a lot to digest in a short little 2-hour work session, and certainly look forward to coming back here in another couple weeks or so and responding to the questions and information requests that you laid out today.
I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Well, like Loretta said, there's been a lot of heavy lifting by a lot of people. This has been a big deep dive. It's hard to come back up for air sometimes.
Well, I'm glad you do.
Right.
In case you're gonna pass out.
These numbers are interesting, fun.
Yeah, and obviously more work to continue, so.
All right, well, yeah, thank you very much for that. I was just quickly searching through to make sure that I gave the right amount for PD1 water bill, because I'm sure that
You'll hear otherwise,
I
Mark.
will hear otherwise if I gave the wrong dollar amount.
You'll
It
be
might have been,
corrected.
it might have been around $60, so I'm just gonna kind of protect myself a little bit. Okay, so moving forward, we will, we can take a look at what I heard. One request from Commissioner Netherland, definitely interested in feedback from Commissioner Trask and Commissioner Schutte. But as an example, for Russellwood, if we were to remain at a flat rate for everyone, what would that look like? That was one, correct? And then potentially breaking down the information into a price per gallon as much as possible, so that individuals could kind of understand what that was. Pull information that for what that average consumption looks like on a monthly basis. And then we can obviously keep this model too. Was there anything else that the commissioners would like to see?
I think I want a little bit more time with all of the data and spreadsheets, and I will probably be scheduling some time with the three of you to discuss a little bit further.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to dig down into the details. Richard's getting really good at answering all my questions.
I get peppered.
So that's your new nickname when you walk in the door. Hey, there's Pepper.
Anything else, Commissioner Trask?
No, I look forward to meeting with the three of you as well. I think it'll be more deep dives.
So let's get those on the books, so that we can get them on our schedules, and then we can kind of look at a timeline associated with when we come back to the board. Because definitely want to get through this. Want to have time to go out and meet with the public and talk with the public about how we're transitioning to a different model, if we are, and what impact it would potentially have on them and those communities. So definitely want to give them opportunity to see that, ask the questions that they have, and then get in time to actually implement.
Great. I'll email you some options.
Great.
Madam Chair, move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you.